What is up, everybody? My name is Weekly Flow, and let's get into this. So, NBA free agency 2023-2024 is today at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here in the United States. And man, Bucks are going to be busy, busy, busy. They're going to be really busy. They have a lot of questions, a lot of moves that they need to get done. This is a little bit risky times here in Bucks Nation because we have two big free agents that need to be retained. That's first and foremost. And tier one of the things that the Bucks need to worry about, it is absolutely retaining Chris Middleton and retaining Brook Lopez. That's by far the most important thing that they can do. We're not in a situation where we're like the Phoenix Suns and where we have maybe six players that are going to end up playing actually meaningful good minutes. But we're in a situation where if we lose either of these guys, you're not getting anything back from them. You're letting them walk for free if you don't get them, or if you don't attempt to do anything with them, whether or not you try to attempt even a basically nearly impossible sign and trade. Regardless, getting Chris, getting Brook back, that's the biggest thing. We have, let's see, we're getting pretty close to that second apron mark. That 182.5 million, I believe, is what the number is, or 182.49 million, something like that, which would put us over that second apron amount. And people are saying hopefully they can get Chris back at about 33 mil, and maybe we can front load that, so maybe we're not paying him 38-40 million dollars like we were potentially going to do now at the end of his contract. And then Brook Lopez has had a ridiculous resurgence in his career, and it's hard to say because his resurgence basically was ever since he joined the Bucks, and he came in on a super cheap deal, basically a minimum deal, and started playing lights out. He was shooting tons of threes and everything like that, and was playing incredible defense, was part of an anchor of top defense in the NBA. And then last season, he was a runner-up to Defensive Player of the Year. Personally, I think he could have still won it, but regardless, that's where he's at right now. He's 35. He's going to be 36. This is probably going to be his last deal, and he's probably going to want as much money as possible. So that brings us to kind of the second tier of things where we need to watch out for. We're kind of pocket watching for other teams. The Kings, the Rockets. Uh, I guess the Spurs have been sort of linked to Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez. We're going to be at this point where we're going to really heavily watch what other teams are doing. If 6 o'clock strikes and it's 6:01 and they have a bunch of deals done, then we don't have to worry about anything. If the Rockets pick up Fred VanVleet for 34.5 million or whatever the case might be, maybe even more than that, or if teams go out and the teams with cap space go out and spend a bunch of money right away, then we're going to be in good shape. That's what we want to avoid, is maybe having the Rockets, or there's been tons of speculation that the Rockets are really interested in Brook Lopez. And if they're going to get Brook and he wants a bag, that's totally fine. He won a championship. He's almost a Defensive Player of the Year. If he wants to go to a new situation and get a bunch of money in his last NBA contract, that's totally fine. He's earned it, and we wouldn't be too upset about that in terms of what Brook's value has gotten him in this stage in his career. Basically missing an entire season, coming back after back surgery, playing really well, and then basically rejuvenating himself. He looks like he's 26 again. But it's a really tough situation where we're kind of dependent on what's going on for other teams. The Kings did restructure a deal for Harrison Barnes, so they kind of not necessarily took themselves out of it, but they still have plenty of cap space. Maybe does Draymond go there? But the Warriors shipped out Jordan Poole for Chris Paul, and they opened up a bunch of cap space for them and the bird rights. So at this point, we are watching for what other teams do. And speaking of other teams, there are some teams who are looking to potentially move some contracts. So this is kind of the tier 3 situation where I guess people are going to call it the John Collins move, or maybe even the Wizards with Jordan Poole, like moving a big contract. Moving a big contract to potentially get off a lot of money before they, start to accrue on the second apron business in the new CBA, which is really scary for a lot of teams who have young talent, who are trying to maintain a core, who just paid a bunch of people, who have contract extensions coming up. And that brings me to my first kind of potential player that I think is a really, really interesting idea and notion. It's just really in the air, and it kind of brings up a discussion about further moves that the Bucks could be making, considering Giannis is technically available to sign an extension in like September, August, around that time. Is he going to do so? Probably not. There's really no reason for him to do so. He's probably going to wait and see what they're doing, what Horst has put in plan for the Bucks to be able to show Giannis, like, hey, we're making moves so that we can go out and compete, not just put ourselves in a position to compete, but we're very serious about we're making this push. We're going to have a good regular season. We're going to carry that momentum over, and we're going to go into the postseason, and we're going to try and get another championship. So Karl Anthony Towns is due for a massive extension. He is going to make $36 million this season, the 23-24 season. But starting next season, he's due for an extension where he could be making 52 mil a year to start and has a player option. And let me just double check on Spotrac. Where am I at here? I got to find it really quickly because I'm not sure where I put it. It is right here. I got to go back to Karl-Anthony Towns. But basically, he's up for potentially $64 million as a player option in 27-28. Almost 65 million. And when you have a talent like Anthony Edwards, you're basically at the point where, and they said this back in April, Tim Connolly, everything that they're going to do, it's going to be around Ant. And they've tried everything with Towns. He hasn't been healthy. He's either been inconsistent in the play-in games that they had. It's just like Cat, you're 7'2", you're massive, you're extremely skilled. Can you please post up? Can you please play defense? Can you not foul? Can you hold your emotions together so you can actually play defense? And it's really difficult, especially when you're going against Memphis, the 2 seed, and you're the 7 seed, and it feels like you could have won that series, and you steal a game from Denver. Granted, it was at home and it was game 4, and you're avoiding a sweep at that point. But if you're Minnesota, you have to start thinking about, can we move this contract, this massive contract? They just re-signed Naz Reid. They have Gobert's massive contract. Ant is up for an extension. He's going to get a bunch of money. Jaden McDaniels is up for an extension. And I think at this point, Cat's 28, I believe, or 27, around that age. And he's at the point where he's going to be wanting to compete. But if he can't stay healthy and if they have all these other problems, maybe you start thinking about moving him. Maybe that's a piece that you can move Bobby, Pat, and maybe a pick or two or whatever you can do. Maybe it's not right now. Maybe it's at the trade deadline, but that's a potential move that you could try and do. Show Giannis, like, hey, we're trying to compete. I guess this also kind of goes in the way of, if Brook decides to leave, that is an option to fill in a starting big. I think any team would be happy to have Cat on their roster. It's a matter of, do you want him to be your best player on your roster trying to compete for a championship? I don't think he's the first option. He is probably at best a reluctant second option, but in a realistic situation, he's probably like an extremely good third option. Some other moves, Colin Sexton has been linked to the Bucks. I'm reading Clutch Points, they're talking about it, and he had a really good season. For him, he came off the bench for the first time. He put up 14 and a half points per game, 50% from the field, almost 40% from three. He has the potential to be even better, and defensively he has that ability to lock down defensively, cause turnovers, really push the ball. He has that nickname, young bull kind of deal. There's always that clip of him going back and forth between the guy who has the ball and the person in the corner. But I think that'd be a really interesting fit with Adrian Griffin's new kind of potential defense, where they're trying to get out in transition, they're trying to put a bunch of pressure on the ball, they're trying to force turnovers. I think that'd be a really, really, really great fit for him. And if you're a Bucks fan, he's 24. I think he'll be turning 25 this season. So you would be getting pretty young, and that's a good sign for not necessarily the future, but in terms of, instead of signing a vet minimum deal for a guy who's 33 years old. There's a big difference in that, and he might not have the experience, but he definitely has the legs. He has the means to be able to defend really well, and is a really athletic point guard in that regard. And does that mean we can move Drew over to the 2 and have Sexton handle the ball, or maybe they kind of do like a rotation combo guard where they're both playing point guard and shooting guard, just kind of depends on the offense. Maybe we'll see what they do. You'd have to move Bobby most likely to match his contract, or maybe you do a combination of Grayson and Pat, but then you kind of thin yourselves out. It'll be interesting for sure. And then for the next free agent, this is someone who I think would be a really interesting pickup. He's been really heavily linked to the Cavs, at least at the moment. So the Celtics show some interest. I know that the Magic might want to get him. They have enough cap space. The Rockets, obviously, they have a bunch of cap space, and they could use some actual bona fide scoring. But this Kelly Oubre Jr., they're saying that he's most likely not going to be back in Charlotte. They got Brandon Miller. They're going to try and focus on him, and they're going to have him play that wing position and try to be that scoring guy. Obviously, they want him to develop. When you have someone who's like 26, 27 years old who still has a lot to offer as an NBA player, at least in the scoring department, Kelly Oubre is probably not the best fit. But I think that's a really interesting idea. Obviously, his shooting is extremely streaky. Any team that he's ever been on, extremely streaky shooter, really good scorer, has the means to be a pretty solid, serviceable defender, fairly athletic. I think he'd be a really great energy guy, super awesome off the bench, scoring punch, can get his own basket, can knock down a three at least somewhat. And it isn't like, man, is he going to go on an extremely like cold streak, or what's going to be the deal? So I think that's a move that they could make. How they go about getting that deal done, I'm not sure. John Horst has done crazier things before, and I think he could manage it. So I'll real briefly touch on Damian Lillard. It's a pipe dream. Bucks fans want him. Giannis and Dame, that's the dream. Is it going to happen? Most likely not. I don't think there's a world where they put together a deal that doesn't involve one of the big three guys to get him, while the Blazers want everything and then some to try and get Dame out of their hands. They're going to do whatever they can to appease Dame, and if he wants to go, he'll go, and he'll go to wherever he wants to go. But they're going to have a very high asking price, and if they're turning down Pascal Siakam, that's kind of a big deal. But as for our own guys that we could retain, Javon Carter declined his player option. He's probably going to want to test his value and see how much he can actually get in the market, because this free agency class, it's not incredible, but he has the means to potentially, maybe he can get 7 million, maybe he can get 8 million. I doubt he's up in that 9-10 million range. Joe Ingles, he's getting up there in age. Does he come back on a minimum? Do we sign him to the taxpayer mid-level? It's going to be a tough situation, but I would personally prefer to give that to Crowder. He seems like he still at least has the legs to do so. Yes, he might have been a little streaky. Yes, he might have looked a little cooked on defense in the playoffs, but I think in a new system with Griffin, he'll have the ability to showcase what he's really, really good at, stretching the floor at least a little bit, playing solid defense as a small ball 4, small ball 5 kind of deal, pair really well next to Giannis. I think I would rather take Crowder over Ingles at this point, but if we can somehow keep both, if Ingles takes a minimum, that'd be incredible. But I think that's pretty much it for Bucks free agency. We're going to see at 6 o'clock, or technically 5 o'clock Central Time. We're going to see what happens. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really fun. I'm really excited. Let me know what you think. Who are some people that you want to get on the team? Who are people that you want to move? What trades do you want to see happen? And let me know. I will see you again next time. Deuces.